What if your entire identity was erased in a trial by fire, and you survived, not just survived, but came back stronger, carrying the power to shatter an empire? This is the story of Ashen, the human who dared to defy an ancient caste, faced the flames of betrayal, and ignited a revolution that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. Welcome to the Garden Between Stars. Let's begin. Prologue. The ceiling dripped, steel condensation pooled in slow, glimmering beads before slipping onto the cracked floor beside Riven's boot. The sound echoed through the old freight tunnel, just one more reminder of how deep they'd buried themselves beneath a dead sky. He leaned against a rusted support beam. Arms crossed, rifles slung across his back. Everything smelled like cold metal and wet stone. He hated this part of the strata, too quiet, too old. It reminded him of the stories his father used to whisper before lights out. Stories about the surface. About fire, about the day the stars fell. Riven closed his eyes. He didn't remember the first purge. Nobody alive did. It was 300 years ago. The Volari ships had come in silence, like ghosts. No warning. No demands. Just annihilation. Cities turned to glass. Oceans boiled. Satellites vanished. They wiped out almost everything, and then left. That was the part that still twisted his gut. Why didn't they finish the job? A sharp footstep broke his thought. He turned. Mira Tao was descending the access stairwell, her voice carried by the stale echo of the shaft. "You're early," she said. "That's new." "I don't sleep before a recon," Riven said. "Too many dreams." She reached the landing and pulled back her hood. Her black hair was damp with tunnel moisture, and her neural uplink band flickered once behind her ear. Her eyes were tired, but focused. He nodded toward her satchel. "You bring it?" Mira patted the leather bag. "The AI core?" "Yeah. I even said please before unplugging it from the archive." "You think it'll talk?" "It's 3 centuries old and partially corrupted. It talks, it screams, it sings, depends on the mood." Riven smirked. "A rare thing." They walked together toward the forward bay. An old metro station turned into a launch corridor. Down here, everything was repurposed. Ancient Earth tech fused with scavenged alien alloy. They called it patchwork engineering. The Volari had perfection. Humans had improvisation and rust, and somehow, it worked. "You know," Mira said, her tone softening, "when I was a kid, I thought the surface was a myth." "It was," Riven said. "Until we decided it wasn't." They reached the bulkhead. Beyond it, the lift shaft would take them to the upper reach, close enough to break through. Close enough to see the sky for the first time in their lives. Riven's hand hovered over the activation panel. "You ready?" he asked. Mira hesitated. "They'll know we're coming, won't they?" "They always do." He pressed his palm to the sensor. The door shuddered open with a mechanical groan. Wind rushed through the corridor, dry and cold and laced with dust older than their bloodlines. For the first time in 3 centuries, the surface was waking up, and somewhere above, the Volari were watching. They thought we were extinct. They thought we forgot the sky. They were wrong. The lift was a coffin, cramped, rattling, barely held together by retrofitted welds and blind faith. Riven stood in the back corner, one hand gripping the ceiling bar, the other wrapped around his rifle strap. Mira sat on the floor with her legs crossed, hunched over the AI core in her lap, her fingers dancing across the interface as it pulsed softly in amber hues. The climb was slow. Every kilometer felt like a prayer. Every jolt reminded them just how far they were from home, and how close they were to the unknown. Riven watched the floor display tick upward. 24 kilometers from surface. Then, 23, then, static. The display blinked twice. Went dark. He narrowed his eyes. "That's not good." Mira didn't look up. "Power flux in the upper junction." "Not us." "Something's up there." "Think they noticed us?" "No," she said, then paused. "Maybe." The lift slowed. A shriek of metal. A violent lurch. Riven's boot slid half an inch before he caught himself. His body tensed on instinct, mind sprinting through breach protocol. Then, stillness. The overhead light flickered back to life. Red, then white. Surface level reached. The door didn't open right away. Riven stared at it. Mira stood beside him, cradling the core. "I've never seen real sky," she whispered. You might still not, Riven said. If they built a dome or kept the atmosphere choked. Do you always kill the moment? Only when I need to. He stepped forward, pressed his hand to the release pad. It pulsed beneath his skin, old biolocks, still functional. For a second, he thought the door wouldn't respond, then it hissed open, light poured in, not bright, not clean, but light, gray and pale like faded bone. Riven raised his rifle and stepped out. The air was bitter, the platform was cracked, half buried in ash. Beyond the lift station, shattered steel towers jutted up like broken ribs. The wind carried dust and silence. Not the silence of death, the silence of waiting. He scanned the horizon. There was no sun, just a dim, veiled glow behind a thick canopy of clouds. Radiation levels blinked on his HUD. Manageable. Barely. Mira stepped out beside him. She pulled down her breather mask and let the cold air hit her face. She closed her eyes. I can smell it, she said. Smell what? History. He didn't answer. Instead, he crouched low and dragged 2 fingers across the ground. Ash stuck to his glove, light gray, soft, almost too fine, not natural. He sniffed it. Bitter metallic scent, burned circuitry, he muttered. Not human. Valari tech. Vaporized. Why would they vaporize their own equipment? Riven stood. Because something scared them. Mira turned in a slow circle, taking in the broken world. That's when they heard it, a soft hum. Low, pulsing. Not wind. Not nature. Something deliberate. Riven raised his weapon. Eyes up. They moved across the cracked concrete, toward what used to be a city center, though now it looked like a bombed-out monument to extinction. But beneath the decay, Riven saw something. Newer, towers, Valari design. Smooth black stone, no seams, no doors. 6 of them. Surrounding a crater, in the center of that crater, embedded in scorched earth, was something glowing, a blue obelisk. 5 meters tall. Humming, Mira approached it slowly, her voice low. This is not Valari. At least not in their standard architecture. Riven's grip tightened. Trap. No, she said, kneeling beside it. Message. She placed the AI core on the dirt and activated it. The amber light shimmered, flickering faster now, syncing with the hum from the obelisk. Then it spoke, a voice, not human, not mechanical. Something in between. Layered. Cold, observation complete. Human deviation exceeds protocol thresholds. Stability compromised. Species classification updated. Humanity is now designated, Tier 10 anomaly. Initiate cleansing sequence. Mira stood, stunned. They've already judged us. Riven stared at the towers. One of them began to glow, then another, then all 6. He activated comms. Base, this is Recon 1. We have contact. I repeat, Valari towers are active. They're not gone. Static, then, Riven. Get out. Now. It was Elder Vaughn's voice, but it was too late. The obelisk pulsed once, bright enough to blind, and released a sound like collapsing thunder. Above them, the clouds began to split, and from the darkness beyond, something moved. They tried to erase us once. This time, we erased them. She couldn't breathe. Not because of the air, it was breathable, barely, but because of what she just heard, Tier 10 anomaly. Mira had studied Valari classification systems her whole life. They were rigid, efficient. Lifeforms were ranked based on threat potential, not emotional metrics. Tier 1 was passive wildlife. Tier 3 meant basic sentience. Tier 6. Weapon capable. Tier 8. Interstellar hostility. Tier 10 didn't exist, or rather, it wasn't supposed to. She crouched beside the AI core as it continued syncing with the obelisk. Its amber glow had turned pale, almost sickly. She could feel the heat off it now. Wrong for a device designed to run cool. Riven, she said. We need to move. Now. He didn't argue. He just nodded and took up a defensive position between her and the nearest tower. She knew that stance, protective, reckless, human, that was the thing about Riven. He didn't need to understand the threat to stand in front of it. She tapped the core's panel. It flashed error messages in 5 languages, 2 of them not human, signal degradation, 61%, memory wake failure, ghost code detected, ghost code. She'd heard the term whispered among deep system hackers, code left behind by dead AIs. Not erased. Not corrupted. Just waiting. She ran a fast scan. It wasn't Valari, and it sure as hell wasn't Earth origin. Riven, she said, her voice flat. The obelisk, it's not theirs. He turned. Not whose? The Valari. She pointed to the crater's edge. Look at the structure. No symmetry. No energy port. No defensive shielding. The Valari never build anything that can't kill you in 4 directions. He eyed the blue obelisk. Then who built it? I don't know. But deep down, she thought she did, and that was worse, something old. Something that had been here before the Valari came. Maybe even before Earth had names for stars. A remnant, buried deep beneath the surface, hidden beneath layers of annihilation and ash, and now, awake. The core flickered once more and then spoke. Not through its interface, but directly into her head, not words, images, a sun, dying, planets cracked open like eggshells, and then, a voice, no gender, no origin, just presence. You burn too brightly. You are not ready. But you are coming anyway. She fell backward, gasping, the core slipping from her hands. Riven caught her. Mira. What the hell just happened? She looked up at him, eyes wide. It's not a weapon, she whispered. It's a warning beacon. He helped her to her feet. Warning, from who? Before she could answer, the ground beneath them shook, not a tremor, a rhythm, a pattern, far off, but closing. Riven swung his rifle around. Mira activated her HUD and tapped into seismic sensors, multiple signatures. Humanoid. Fast. Heat-masked, Valari. She asked aloud. No, Riven said grimly. Too messy. Then came the sound, not machine. Not footfall, chittering, low. Wet. Bone deep, the ash in the air thickened. Shapes began to emerge in the distance, crawling along the ruins. Not drones. Not soldiers, something else, and in the pit, the obelisk flared again, bright enough to illuminate a single line of text across Myra's HUD, Genesis Protocol engaged, : she stared at it, Genesis. She muttered. But that's, creation. The obelisk pulsed again, brighter this time. And the things in the dark screamed. Humanity was supposed to die in silence, but something buried in Earth's bones had other plans, and it just chose us. They were coming fast. Riven could hear them now, whatever the hell they were, rushing through the ash-drenched wind. Not charging, not screaming, just moving. Like they'd done it before. Like they'd been trained. Or bred. Mira was still pale, hands shaking slightly as she resecured the AI core. She wasn't panicking, just processing. That's what she did. She saw patterns in chaos. He saw targets. 10 seconds, he said. She nodded. 2 flanks, left and front. 3rd wave lagging, either slower or coordinating. You got that from seismic? She shook her head. I got it from the way the ash is falling. God, she was smart. Riven dropped to one knee and activated his weapon's plasma rail. It hummed, cold and smooth. He leveled it at the ruin line where movement stirred. His HUD blinked. Target acquired. Form unknown. Designation. Class Zeta unknown. Zeta, that wasn't a standard Valari combat class. Not even close. This wasn't a battlefield. It was a test chamber. The first one emerged. It was tall, 7 feet at least. Vaguely humanoid, but wrong. Elongated arms, slick skin like obsidian. No eyes. Its mouth opened across the lower half of its face. Filled with rows of small, needle-like teeth, it stopped at the edge of the ash, sniffed the air, and screamed. Riven fired. The rail shot tore through the thing's shoulder. It spun, black blood arcing through the air, and still, it charged. Mira shouted behind him. They're not biosynthetic. Yeah, I noticed. More came, 5, then 8, then 12. Riven dropped 3 with rapid shots, but they didn't move like soldiers. They moved like predators. Fast. Adaptive. Crawling up walls, leaping between broken towers, he ducked behind a collapsed pillar. One landed beside him, so close he could hear its breath. He stabbed upward, jamming a short blade through its jaw. It convulsed, hissed, and collapsed. Behind him, Mira triggered a sonic pulse from the AI core. It shrieked into the ash, disorienting the wave for just a second. Riven. She yelled. We have to fall back. He grabbed the AI core with one hand and her wrist with the other. Go. Back to the lift. I'll cover. No. Look. She pointed toward the obelisk. It was cracking. Blue light pulsed from the fracture lines, lightning thin and spreading. A low hum shook the ground. The Volari towers nearby dimmed. As if afraid, Riven stared. This wasn't just a beacon, it was activating something below. He felt it in his bones. Not hope. Not salvation, power, old, angry, and unfinished. New plan, he said, run. Mira asked, worse, he said, turning toward the obelisk. We wake it up. They wanted to label us, control us, erase us, but the thing buried under our feet, it never forgot our name, it just waited for the right voice to scream it back, underscore. The obelisk exploded without sound, just light, blinding, white-blue, expanding outward in a perfect sphere. But instead of burning them, it wrapped around Riven and Mira like a membrane, and then it pulled them down. One moment, he was standing on fractured earth with monsters bearing down, the next, he was falling, no sensation of descent. Just gravity folding in on itself, then, impact, hard, jarring, not lethal. He coughed and opened his eyes. The sky was gone. Above him, nothing but smooth black stone, stretching up forever in a spiral of impossible geometry. He stood slowly. The air was warm here. Buzzing with power. The smell of ash was gone, replaced by ozone and memory. Mira groaned nearby, pushing herself upright. She looked around, blinking. We're inside it. He nodded. The floor beneath them was metallic, etched with deep glowing patterns. Not Volari. Something older. Human maybe. Or, pre-human. The walls pulsed with low-frequency light, as if breathing. A deep thrumming echoed through the space. Ba-dum. Ba-dum. Riven touched his chest. The rhythm matched his heartbeat. Mira, he said slowly, this place is alive. Mira, she moved like in a dream. Each step triggered motion in the walls. Runes lighting up, shifting, adapting to her proximity. The AI core buzzed in her hands, almost excited, like it recognized something here. Something it had been built to find. This is a memory vault, she murmured. Or a seed chamber. Look at the construct patterns, recursive loops. Like neurons. Riven looked skeptical. Seed of what? She didn't answer, she didn't know, yet. She reached a panel, a wide, curved plate covered in dust and light. Her fingers danced across it. The symbols shifted, rearranged, and then stabilized into something she could understand. Entry granted, language sync complete, files, 1,045,663, origin, Earth, Genesis complex, sublevel 0, her breath caught, Genesis complex, she whispered. This is ours. What do you mean ours? Riven asked, this place. This vault. It wasn't made by the Volari. Or the things above. She looked at him. It was made by humans. Before the collapse. Before we even knew how close we were to extinction. Riven frowned. That was over 1,000 years ago. No. Longer. This predates every archive. This isn't history, this is prehistory. He stepped beside her, staring at the central dais. It began to rise. Something hovered above it, an orb, faintly glowing, etched with coordinates and fractured planetary maps. Mira recognized Earth. Mars. Titan. But there were others, planets not charted. Stars not catalogued, and at the center, a spiral galaxy, marked with one blinking last safe haven, she felt the blood drain from her face. They left, she said. Someone, some version of us, escaped before the Volari came. Riven was silent. Then, and left this behind? No, she said. They left this as a message. A door. Riven. Something about the orb unnerved him. It wasn't just ancient tech, it felt like a memory. Like something imprinted on his bones, like destiny. He drew closer, then stopped. A voice echoed through the chamber, not human. Not alien. Just, aware, you are the fire they feared. You are the fragment they could not extinguish. But you are not yet complete. Mira turned, her eyes wide. Did you hear that? Yeah, he said grimly. Wasn't my conscience. The orb pulsed once more, then it spoke again. To reclaim what was lost, you must become what was abandoned. One trial. One price. One path forward. A panel opened beneath their feet. A stairway, descending into perfect blackness. They buried our beginning in darkness, but they forgot something about humans. We don't fear the dark, we light it on fire. The stairs swallowed sound, no echo. No breath. Even the AI core had gone quiet, its lights dim as if holding its breath. Every step Riven took felt heavier than the last, not from fatigue, but from memory. Like the stone itself was watching, behind him, Mira followed in silence. Neither of them spoke, words didn't belong here. The staircase spiraled down into a chamber lit only by soft, ambient lines carved into the walls. They pulsed gently, matching Riven's heartbeat again. Not natural, deliberate. A calibration. Finally, the stairway ended. Before them, a chamber opened wide. Hexagonal. Smooth. And in the center, a platform. Suspended in air. Waiting, Mira stepped forward, slowly. It's scanning us. He nodded. Feels like it's peeling my soul apart. A soft voice, neutral, ancient, filled the chamber. Subject Riven Hale. Classification, human. Genetic lineage confirmed. Cognitive signature, unstable but resilient. Adaptive capacity, high. Subject Mira Tao. Classification, human. Genetic lineage confirmed. Cognitive signature, multidimensional. Strategic potential, high. Trial protocol unlocked. The walls changed, Riven turned, a second platform rose beside them, glowing red. On it stood a copy of him, identical. Armor. Rifle. Eyes, but colder, emotionless. Then another appeared, this time of Mira, and then dozens, a circle of duplicates. Perfect, soulless versions of themselves. Mira whispered, it's not a test of combat. No, Riven said. It's a test of identity. The voice returned, to reclaim your legacy, you must prove you are more than biology. More than memory. More than programming. Kill the version of yourselves that will always choose survival over sacrifice. Only then are you fit to lead. Riven clenched his fists. This wasn't about enemies. It was about the choice every human had been forced to make 1,000 times in war, famine, exile. Do I save myself, or do I save the one behind me? Mira, she could feel the dilemma pulling at her like gravity. Her clone moved like her, thought like her, could predict her. She raised her weapon. Her double raised it too. You'll hesitate, the copy said. Because you always do. You calculate odds instead of making moves. That's why people die around you. Mira didn't flinch. Maybe. She took a breath, and maybe I learned to make the shot anyway. She fired, so did the clone, both hit, but only one got up, blood on her shoulder. Pain in her side, but alive. Herself. Barely, Riven. He didn't wait for his clone to speak, he charged it head-on. Blade drawn, they fought like mirrors, strike, parry, counter. Every move anticipated. Every instinct predicted, but Riven fought dirty. He kicked low, swept hard, grabbed a fragment of broken platform and smashed it into the clone's jaw. The thing staggered. Let me guess, Riven spat. You're the me that saves the world by walking away first. The clone lunged again, he caught it, and drove his blade through its chest. It didn't scream. Just looked at him. Like it knew. He stood, panting, as the body disintegrated into light. Mira limped to his side, passed. He asked, I think so. The voice returned, trial complete. Sacrifice confirmed. Identity affirmed. Path restored. Welcome, heirs of flame. The chamber trembled, then opened. Beyond it, a hallway lit with golden lines. A cryochamber. Ancient consoles. And in the far distance, stars, real ones, behind a transparent dome, a massive underground launch facility. Vessels suspended in stasis. Entire archives of pre-collapse humanity, sealed away, waiting. Underscore 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 underscore. They buried the torch beneath 1,000 years of ash, but it still burns, and someone just picked it up. The vault was a city. Frozen in time, sealed beneath layers of war and forgetting. Mira stood at the edge of the cryo-hall, watching as the consoles blinked awake one by one. The old systems wanted to speak, they'd been waiting. Riven moved quietly behind her, scanning for threats, but it was instinct now. Here, the danger wasn't claws or plasma, it was truth. She touched a control panel. The language morphed into modern standard instantly, an automatic translation seeded by genetic access codes. Riven leaned in. What are you doing? I'm waking the voice, she murmured. The chamber responded. A slow hum began to rise, so low, so deep, it felt like the mountain itself was exhaling. Then it spoke. A voice filled the room. Male. Calm. Warm, human, designation, ARCHOS, primary function, preservation of Terran lineage, subfunction, guidance protocol, status, rebooted, query, are you the heirs? Mira swallowed. Yes. The voice paused, as if parsing emotion. At last. A column of light appeared in the center of the hall. A figure began to render inside, a hologram, blurred at first, then forming into a tall man with silver-threaded hair, a military-grade suit and a tired smile. Not perfect. Not clean. Not godlike, just real, like a man who had seen the end and still tried. I am Archaeos, the final steward of the Genesis complex. If you are seeing this, then you survived them. The Valari. We did not. Riven, he crossed his arms, watching the image. You're saying you're from before the war? The hologram nodded. Long before. Before the collapse. Before Earth was fractured. Before the last great migration. We knew the Valari were coming. We built this place to prepare, not to fight, but to preserve who we were. Riven frowned. Why not fight? Because we already had. And we lost. The Valari were not conquerors. They were correctors. They saw humanity's chaos, our violence, our fear, and judged us unworthy. Mira stepped forward. So you hid? No, Archaeos said gently. We remembered. Mira, she stared into the AI's face. There were others. You said there was a last safe haven. Archaeos turned, a planetary map appeared behind him. Stars glowed like pearls in ink. When the earthbound fell, a fraction of us fled. Arcs. Scattered through the dark. Each with a different creed, a different hope. Some didn't make it. But some did. One of them, Arc Helion, was instructed to send this beacon. The coordinates pointed to a distant system. Unknown. Unreachable, until now. Your task is not to survive, Mira Tau. It is to reconnect. Riven, he squinted. Reconnect what? Archaeos met his gaze, the soul of humanity. The Valari broke us into pieces. Made us forget what we were. You are not soldiers anymore, you are memory. Will. Fire. You are the proof that we still exist. Riven blinked hard. He hadn't cried since he was 12. But something about this, something in his chest cracked open. We're not enough, he said. Archaeos smiled. You were never meant to be alone. Mira, the launch chamber began to awaken. Engines hummed. Fuel lines pulsed. The ancient ship, sleek, compact, sharp as a blade, lowered from a gantry like it had never aged a day. One ship, Archaeos said, one jump, and one final message to deliver. Mira looked at Riven. He didn't speak, he just nodded. They thought they silenced us, that if they erased enough names, enough stories, we would vanish. But memory is stronger than machines, and fire never dies quietly. The chamber was carved from obsidian and starlight. Varith Kal stood in the center, wrapped in a mantle of neural silk, its tendrils brushing the cold floor as the thought lines synced with his mind. He tasted the data before hearing it, a pulse, sharp, ancient. Terran, repeat it, he said, calmly, a sub-counselor. Young by Valari reckoning, bowed its head. Confirmed, speaker. A signal from Sol 3. Buried infrastructure. Not mechanical. Cognitive in origin. The fifth line rippled with unease. Another counselor, eldest, blind from centuries of overmerge, clicked its tongue in dismay. That node was sterilized. The mind should not remain. Varithkal narrowed his gaze. It didn't remain. He turned to the central array, where a star map unfolded like ink across a lens. It awakened. The council's spines bristled. Valari did not fear. Not in the way humans had. But they had learned to respect one thing, recurrence, and this pattern, the defiance, the fire, the persistence, was a signature they knew too well. It cannot be allowed, another voice said. Send a fracture fleet. Burn the mountain. Again. Varithkal raised a hand. No, he zoomed the star map in, following the signal's secondary thread, a jump key, encoded into the activation burst. It pointed outward, to the edge of remembered space. They are not just remembering, he said. They are reaching. A silence passed through the chamber, then whispers. Thought streams flickering. They were not prepared. They had assumed the Terran embers would never glow again. What do you propose? The blind elder asked. Varithkal stared into the center of the room, where the beacon's reconstructed waveform pulsed, soft and steady, human, relentless. I propose, he said coldly, we prepare for a return. Meanwhile, across the void, the ship begins to hum beneath Mira and Riven. Countdowns light up, coordinates lock, Archaeos' final words echo in the hull. They think they ended us. But what they ended was the age of mercy. Riven gripped the rails as the launch platform shook around them. The whole mountain rumbled like it was trying to wake from a 1,000-year coma, and didn't like it. Mira sat at the helm, her eyes scanning the arcane control systems like they were music. The Genesis ship, Vantage 1, was alive now. And it wasn't subtle. Ignition cycle complete, she said. Propulsion capacitors at 80%. We've got one shot at this, Riven. He glanced up at the main view. The stone roof above was folding away. A spiral maw of ancient metal plates rotated open, revealing a shaft that climbed straight into the sky. A cold breath of wind passed through the bay. Then, screaming, not human, the sensors blinked red, inbound. Valari fracture unit, Mira said sharply. Drilling down. Fast. A shriek cut through the mountain as the lower access corridors collapsed. The Valari weren't just coming, they were already here. The Genesis ship, Riven dropped into the co-pilot seat. The cockpit was smooth, minimalist, designed for people who had time. They didn't. He slammed a fist into the command key. Launch override. Emergency priority, Terra directive. Archaeos' voice chimed through the hull, confirmed. Initiating burn. The ship lurched. Below, in the vaults, ancient clamps released. Plasma coils surged. Ion channels ignited with the sound of a hurricane caught in a cage. A glow filled the chamber. Then, roar, Vantage 1 launched like a spear through the core shaft, rising in a blue-white column of light. The earth fell away beneath them. Above, the sky cracked open. Stars, clouds, freedom, and behind them, a Valari spike cruiser tore through the shaft wall. Mira, she yanked the throttle hard, banking Vantage 1 to the left as the Valari ship cleared the shaft, charging after them. It's faster than us. She shouted. Yeah, Riven growled, but we're smarter. He flipped open a panel near his leg. Red switches, old school. Dirty. Dangerous. You ever slingshot a prototype vessel through low orbit with no shielding? Myra's eyes widened. That's suicide. Not if we're lucky. Are we? Nope. He hit the switch. The chase, Vantage 1 dropped into lower atmosphere, too low. Trees blurred past. Mountains whipped by in seconds. The Valari ship adjusted, sleek and sharp, its harpoons glowing with plasma. Mira rerouted power to rear flares. They're going to lock on. They already did, Riven muttered. Brace, the Genesis ship banked hard between two canyons. The Valari closed in, just as their weapon systems aligned. Mira cut the thrust and fired all stabilizers. Dead stop. The Valari overshot, just a second, and Riven fired the ship's only forward kinetic round. Impact. The Valari ship spun out, clipped a ridge, and exploded into a blue cascade of unnatural flame. Orbit. They punched through the last layer of atmosphere. Silence. Stars above them. The curve of the earth behind, Archaeos chimed in again, trajectory locked. Jump window stable. Awaiting your command. Mira exhaled shakily. Ready? Riven didn't answer. He just looked out the window. At the earth, burned. Beautiful, forgotten, then he reached for the control, let's go find the rest of us. He was alone, Mira had gone to rest. The stars beyond the viewport shimmered like broken glass on black velvet. Riven sat in the memory chair, a throne of ancient alloy and living circuits. Archaeos' voice was soft now, your neural lattice is stable, initiating phase link, memory stream will begin in 10 seconds. Riven adjusted the skull plate against the back of his neck. He didn't know why he agreed to this. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was guilt, maybe it was because he needed to know if they'd ever been worth remembering. Beginning upload. And then everything shattered, the past. He opened his eyes to fire, skyscrapers cracked like bones under the weight of orbital beams. The sky was orange with dust. The streets below swarmed with panic, with soldiers, with silence, but no one screamed anymore. That part was over. The city was called New Avalon. It had once been a sanctuary. Now, it was a tomb. Archaeos' voice, within the memory, this was the fifth to fall. We had tried reason. We had tried surrender. The Volari offered one alternative, extinction. Riven moved through the memory like a ghost. He saw scientists uploading data cores into vast shuttles. Children being ushered into sleep pods. Military units drawing lines they knew they couldn't hold. He saw hope dying, but not gone. The last meeting, in the underground vault, lit by flickering yellow panels, a group of human leaders gathered, not presidents. Not kings, mothers. Engineers. One-legged veterans. A singer with burned scars. A mechanic with a stutter, and the man Riven recognized from the Archaeos hologram, tired, proud, unbroken. He stood before the others and said, we are not trying to survive. We are trying to be remembered. If we fail to escape this, let them find echoes of what we were, and if they find us again, let them remember that we fought. Riven was pulled through more scenes. A father holding a rifle beside his daughter's stasis pod, whispering stories as the bombs fell, a pilot laughing as he launched a suicide run to buy 2 extra minutes for the last launch, a girl, maybe 12, typing a message into a black box, we were alive. We loved. Please don't forget. And then, the final silence, the Volari descended, the earth dimmed, the memory went black. Back in the chair, Riven gasped. He was crying and didn't know why. Archaeos spoke again, gently. Now you understand. They didn't just die, Riven. They chose, every single one of them, to make this moment possible. Riven opened his eyes. He wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was a torchbearer. She woke to a hum beneath her bones. The same hum she'd known since birth. HFY, forged in desperation, launched in silence, hidden in the fold space at the edge of known memory. It had drifted for centuries, not sleeping, not truly alive, until now. Commander Alira Voss rose from her rest chamber and blinked through the filtered light. A soft blue glow pulsed along the corridor walls. That wasn't standard status, she said aloud, her voice rough. The system answered, sharper than usual. External signal detected. Source, Sol System. Origin, Earth. Tier 0 emergency priority. She froze. Earth, that word didn't belong here, not anymore, not after everything. Replay. The signal, it wasn't words, it was a pulse, ancient, defiant, encrypted in a pattern lost to time. But HFY wasn't just a ship. It was a vault. A carrier of culture, data, memories. The AI began unraveling the message like a hymn from before the fall, and then, a voice, to the lost, to the last, we are not gone, come home. Alira gripped the edge of the console, tears welled before she could stop them. HFY on command deck. She stood before the council of the 5 divisions, each representing a shard of humanity's surviving spirit. The Flameborn, descendants of the old military, sharp-eyed and restless, the makers, engineers, system thinkers, problem solvers, the listeners, philosophers and memory keepers, the seed, geneticists, terraformers, the lifeblood of renewal, the freeborn, unaligned, the chaotic element that kept them human. They stared at her now, some hopeful, some afraid, all waiting. The signal is Terran, she said. Confirmed. Alive. Sent from our origin world. A maker leaned forward. That's impossible. Earth was consumed. A flame-born warrior smiled. Or saved. Alira looked up at the central hologram, Earth, flickering between past and present. This changes everything. The myths were true, we didn't die, we endured. The listeners whispered among themselves, the freeborn simply nodded, one seed woman stepped forward. Then we respond. Alira clenched her jaw, we don't respond, we go. And with that, the command rang out, activate jump core. Set course, soul system, humanity is coming home. Silence reigned in the command crucible. Syrinx knelt, motionless, his 6 limbs folded in the posture of shame. Above him, the overmind coalesced, thousands of braided thoughts forming a single presence in the void of the chamber. The air rippled with psychic weight, a Genesis vessel escaped, the overmind said, its voice splitting across dimensions. And you failed to contain it. Syrinx kept his gaze low. They reactivated our chaos. It was unforeseen. Nothing is unforeseen, the overmind whispered. You forgot what they were. The crucible darkened, behind Syrinx, the others could feel it, the memory pulse. A data storm pulled from the overmind's core. They saw it now, the fall of Earth, not as humans did, but as the Valari remembered it, Valari memory. The humans had burned half their own planet just to spite the invasion, they poisoned skies they needed to breathe, collapsed systems they had built for millennia, just to deny the Valari control. And when defeat was absolute, they buried their secrets in worlds the Valari dared not touch. They are not a species, the overmind said, they are a detonation in slow motion. Syrinx raised his head, what are your orders? The overmind pulsed, the humans are awakening. The arc stirs. The last embers glow, we will smother them before they ignite. We should deploy infiltrators. Syrinx offered. Dismantle them from within. No, a pause, we send the Scorch Legion. Gasps echoed from the chamber's edges. Even the oldest strategists shifted uneasily, you would destroy the Earth. One whispered, yes, the overmind answered coldly. And every fragment of their memory. It leaned forward, its voice now like oil and thunder, send the signal to all nodes, Operation Ashfall is active, no more second chances, no more myths, erase the humans. The stars didn't move, not out here. In the deep drift between jump lanes, between forgotten systems, silence reigned. Mira sat cross-legged near the NAV console, reassembling a plasma coil blindfolded, just to keep her hands busy. Riven lay strapped to the med table, sweat glistening along his neck. The memory upload had torn through him like fire. You shouldn't have done that, Mira said softly. I had to, he whispered. She looked up, finally removing the blindfold. His eyes, so dark before, now shimmered with faint light. Echoes of the past burned behind them, you're changing. So are you. Anomalous signal detected, the ship pinged, once, then again, a third time, low, almost uncertain. Like something calling across a canyon, Mira was at the console in seconds. That's not Valari, she murmured. Wrong structure. Too fluid. Riven sat up. Human. She shook her head, older. The signal repeated. A string of tones, then silence. Then again, Riven moved beside her, still weak, but alert. It's not just a message. It's a lure. Or a warning, Mira added. Coordinates locked. It's not far, 2 light jumps. Riven stared at the screen. The symbol pulsing there wasn't Terran, it looked like a human handprint, but twisted, almost skeletal. They voted, I say we check it, Riven said. We need allies. Answers. Anything. Mira hesitated, she'd spent most of her life avoiding anomalies. Anything unclassified was a threat, but now, she looked at him. The man wasn't the same, and maybe she wasn't either. Strap in, she said. We're jumping. The world bent, stars twisted into spirals of color, and the ship screamed forward through a fold in space. Then, they emerged, into stillness. The planet hung in the void below. Black surface. No atmosphere. Dead. But orbiting it, is that a station? It looked like a cathedral made of bones and silver. Silent. Alien. And ancient. The signal pulsed again, stronger now. Someone left the door open, Mira whispered, and Riven nodded, then let's knock. The docking bay was hollow, massive, and dustless, like time itself had been erased here. Myra's boots touched the surface with a soft hiss, her helmet visor flickering as it adjusted to the silence. No atmosphere. No decay. No signs of life, just the cold, and the bones. Riven, she called through comms. You're going to want to see this. He floated behind her, mag locked to the entry ring, eyes scanning the walls. They weren't bones. Not exactly. The station had grown them, ivory-colored struts branching like vertebrae into the walls, into the ceiling, wrapped around long-dead terminals and cryopods. He touched one, not human. Not Valari either. She nodded. Something else. Something older. They moved through the corridor in near darkness. The architecture shifted with every meter. No right angles. Everything flowed, organic, deliberate. Then they reached a chamber, a perfect dome. Dozens of pods ringed the walls, shattered. Inside them, dust. Metal husks. And on the far side, a mural. Mira stared. Pulse rising, that's Earth. It was unmistakable. Not just the shape. The cloud patterns. The moon. Painted in alien pigment, ringed by Valari warships, and below them, a single mark, the symbol of humanity, a fire, and a crown. A tone triggered. The walls came alive, not in light. In sound. Layered harmonics, strange voices stacked like chords in a symphony, looping around a single phrase, beware the broken flame. Riven's eyes glazed, he stepped forward, hand trembling. Mira grabbed his arm, what are you doing? But he didn't answer. He touched the wall, and it answered back. The symphony twisted into a low, trembling chant. They survived the fire, they became the fire. Do not awaken them. Mira yanked him back. His skin had started to glow. Briefly, you heard that? She snapped. He nodded, eyes wide. They knew about us. They weren't afraid of the Valari. They were afraid of us. Mira stepped back, heart pounding. Then why build this place? To warn anyone who came after. To lock their history in a tomb. Because they didn't want the fire to spread. He looked up at the mural again. They thought we were extinction in human form. Outside the station, back aboard the ship, the signal pulsed one final time, and then stopped. The station went dark, a failsafe. A message sent, neither of them knew. But far away, something else did. Valari subnetwork, node 771, alert, unauthorized memory relay detected. Origin, exoprecursor architecture, subject, human class anomaly. Directive updated, track. Contain. Erase, the world above was ash and static, gray skies. Blasted cities. Oceans boiled to mist and left to rot. Kira Voss stood at the edge of the ancient elevator shaft, breathing filtered air through scarred lungs, her eyes scanning the ruined skyline of old Geneva. How long's it been? A voice crackled behind her. She didn't turn. 7 years. Since the last Valari probe passed overhead. Below them, the resistance slept, but not for much longer, deep underground. Beneath 300 meters of tungsten alloy rock, the Atlas core hummed quietly to life, an AI. Human-built. Old-world tech. Illegal by every pre-war treaty. Its mind had been boxed, restrained, buried after the Singularity Accords, but now, its voice broke through the silence. Command authorization accepted. Commander Kira Voss. Earth Directive 01, initiate contingency Phoenix. Warning klaxons lit the halls. Dust shook loose from the ceilings, one by one, cryopods opened. Engineers. Soldiers. Scientists. Survivors, a ghost army, the message from the Arkansas. It had taken years, but the signal finally reached them, distorted. Fragmented. But unmistakably human. Riven Hale. Mira Sovel. Arc-class vessel confirmed. Kira's hands clenched. They made it, she whispered. They're coming back. Someone behind her laughed, bitter and bright. Then let's give them a planet worth coming home to. They moved through the forbidden vaults. Relics of the last Great War, exosuits powered by fusion cores. Rail cannons that could shear a Valari corvette in half. Swarm drones banned after the Red Europa incident. And one chamber still locked, inside it, a weapon no one had touched in decades. You think we'll need that? Her second-in-command asked. Kira didn't answer.